Welcome to Azeroth United, a weekly podcast about World of Warcraft. My name is Denethar, and I am your host.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Tuesday, January 7th, and this is episode 69 of Azeroth United. We have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be discussing the patch 11.1 PTR that just went live today, as well as doing a little bit of a review of Season 1 of The War Within and the raid and the dungeons and my personal take on it. I know there's a lot of people who are much more hardcore than I am. I definitely take it easy when I play the game, and I'm not trying to get very far into it. So I'm going to approach it from that standpoint. It's more of a everyman type perspective on it. So take it for what you will. But yeah, that's going to be the show for today. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and enjoy. And as always, if you have any questions or comments about the podcast, or if you have a particular topic that you'd like to hear discussed, please email us at azerothunitedpod@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the show and you'd like to help us out, you could consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Those really help out the distribution, so if you are inclined to do so, we would be very, very grateful. If you're watching us on YouTube, you could give us a like and a subscribe. That would also really help us out. For anybody who would like to do a little bit more, there is the show Patreon, patreon.com/Azeroth United. We have 2 different tiers of patrons, and right now I'd like to take a moment to thank our friend of the show patrons who they give their IRL money to help us out. And, production of the show is not free. I do have to spend some money on it, and I'm not asking for any money in return, but if you would like to help out, I will gladly accept that. So right now I'd like to thank Judge Omni and Stuglife for their support. Thank you so very much. You definitely help make Azeroth United possible. And for anyone else who's considering Patreon or any other form of support, I really do appreciate it, but at the same time, it's definitely not necessary. Azeroth United will always be free. It will always be available. At the end of the day, I'm doing this for fun. I am not doing this to make money. So if I could recover some of the costs, that would be great. But I will never overextend myself for the podcast because I just don't. That doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, I really do appreciate it. It really means a lot to me to know that there are people out there who are enjoying the show and really like it. So anyway, sorry, I'll stop with that. Before I get to the news, I will do a quick rundown of what I got up to last week in World of Warcraft. So we'll start with the other stuff, and then we'll get to Nerebar Palace. So the anniversary event is over now. If you've logged on since then to your alts are just stranded in Tannerus. You've got a Hearthstone, or I guess there's a portal up the hill. So I think I have all of my characters who are on my main server, which is Azeroth. They are all 71 and above now after the event. I didn't do it every day. I didn't do the trivia question every day. Not like Dave Gagne from the solo queue, who did it every day and kept track of it in a spreadsheet. I wasn't quite that dedicated, but it did do it a lot. I got my Warlock up to 75, which is weird because I never play Warlock. And I think my Shadow Priest I got to 72. Everyone else is 71, which is cool. So yeah, I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, I've kind of dogged on the anniversary event a lot. It was a good event. I really like it, and I'm kind of sad that it's no longer here. But at the same time, I feel like it could have been so much more. Blizzard could have done so much more to make it memorable for the players, and I don't know. I feel like it was a missed opportunity in a lot of ways. But having said that, I do miss it that it's now that it's no longer here. So logging on, having all the vendors there, it's a little sad. So yeah, it's also a really interesting dynamic to have such a long anniversary event, because normally the anniversary is 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Here we got 2+ months. This is a big deal. So yeah, it's over, and I'm kind of bummed, and yeah, that's that. So aside from that, I mean, you got to go out to Siren Isle, you got to level up your ring, and So Siren Isle it's a great piece of content for a .7 patch. A lot of people have complained about it. Oh, there's no content. There's nothing to do. Blizzard, where's our content? The .7 is not about adding a bunch of new raids and dungeons. It's about giving you some dailies, giving you an hour or two of play loop, and that's it. That's the whole thing. You get an hour or two a week per character. If you want to do it on multiples, you can. But the currency is warbound, so you can just transfer it around. And the citrines are warbound. Now, the way that they did the citrines, where you have to go in and you have to buy a citrine on the character that unlocked it and then send it to your alt, it's a little weird. But I know there are some technical limitations still with some of these things that Blizzard has to work through. That's fine. I get it. I'm happy with the patch as a whole. I feel like the content is good. I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours grinding out currency and doing things. Being able to pop in there, spend 45 to 60 minutes, upgrade my ring, it's done. I don't have to go back there again for the week. I can if I have my alt. Like I've got my Death Knight, and I've been working on my Druid for Season 2. So my Druid's going out there too. And occasionally I'll take the Demon Hunter out there too. But if you miss a week, guess what? There's a catch-up mechanic. So, I mean, it's such a well-designed zone, event. The whole thing is good. I feel like Blizzard really nailed patch 11.0.7. So that's just my take on that. So, yeah, I really enjoyed Siren Isle. Okay, so let's talk about raid. So I did my guild. We ran... okay, so let's start with Wednesday. Wednesday, the main tank called off. He couldn't make it to raid. It was New Year's Day evening. So, not the day you go out party. That's New Year's Eve evening. But, still some people were still recovering from New Year's Eve and whatnot. So we decided to call raid on that day, which was kind of a bummer, but that's okay. Thursday, we went into Ansarek. Now, here's the thing with the Ansarek fight. It's long, but it's not Sylvanas long. It's not even Razageth long. There are very clearly defined phases. It's such a well-designed fight. The problem that we were having is that we would go in there and somebody would invariably die within the first couple of minutes to something ridiculous. They were standing in something. They missed the explosion where you jump over the wave. Something that they could have easily fixed, but they still died. And so we would immediately blow the battle res on it and get them back up and continue on. So we did that a few times. We got to phase 2 a couple of times. We even hit phase 3 and immediately wiped a couple times. So at a certain point, the raid leader was like, all right, we're going to switch it. So we're doing hero at the beginning of phase 3, which, I mean, that makes sense. Why not? So we did that, and that really helped. We got to 13%. And then I think we had a couple more weird pulls where we were battle resing people early on, and then we didn't have a battle res available. So one of the problems with battle resing people early on in a fight, for us especially, we have 10 people in this raid group. And when you have 10 people, you only get one battle res every 5 minutes. So you start off with one battle res, and then the counter starts ticking down for your second one. Well, if somebody dies 2 minutes in, you have now 3 minutes that you have to go with no battle res. And if you get to the transition phase for phase 2 and your healer goes down, you're done. That's it. You now have no healer for the platforms. So we had to address that, and people started doing better, and we started working really hard on getting the mechanics just right and making sure that we were getting into phase 2 successfully without any deaths. We might still lose somebody, but we were doing so well. And then we got to phase 3, and we really progressed. And like I said, we got to 13%. And one of the people asked, "What do I do with the webs?" And at that point, we all realized we haven't been here yet. And so nobody's explained the fight to people. And while, yes, you should be able to do your own research on the fight, I get that. But as a raid group, we're in this together. Let's discuss it. Let's make sure we know what our strategy is going into phase 3. So I asked for, just a quick pause. Let's talk about all of the mechanics in phase 3. Let's make sure everybody's familiar. Let's go through the whole thing, make sure everybody understands. Yes, everyone understands. Okay, good, let's go. So we went on. We had another poll that got to 11%, and we wiped. And, we were doing better. Last poll of the night. It was 5 minutes left to go in raid. So we're like, this is it. This is the last poll. We got to phase 3, and we took the first portals. Everything was good. We killed the ads. We got to the second portals, and we took the second portal, and we instantly died. And it was like, what just happened? And the raid leader went, "Oh, we forgot to get the we forgot to get the souls from the ads." So nobody had thought to assign somebody to grab the spirits from the ads. So yeah, it was a bummer to end the raid on such a sad note. But now that we are aware of that, we'll go in this week, which will for me it'll be Wednesday, so that'll be tomorrow. And we'll knock it out. We'll knock it out real fast. I feel like we'll be able to kill Queen pretty quickly. And then who knows what we're going to do after that. We might, I don't know that we're going to look at Mythic, but maybe we'll go clear Queen on normal and try and get some loot. I don't know. Mythic would be nice. It would be fun. But honestly, I don't know that our group has the focus to do Mythic. Maybe the first boss. I don't know. It'd be tough. Yeah, so that was raid, and that was a real bummer, but that's how it goes, and you gotta stay positive, and we were all really positive. We laughed it off, and everyone went, all right, we'll get her next week, and so that's what we're gonna do. So anyway, that was raid for the week, and yeah, like I said, it was a little bit of a bummer, but yeah, that's how it goes. And that was it. That was all I did. I didn't do any other classic stuff or really anything else. I just kind of dinked around a little bit. It was kind of an off week. We got a huge snowstorm that came through on Sunday here in Ohio. And so here's the thing. Where I live, we don't get a lot of snow. We do get some, maybe a couple inches for the year, maybe a foot over the entire season. Maybe a 2 feet. Woo! What a big snow year. So we got 12 inches overnight. So Sunday and into Monday morning. And so the entire city shut down. There's nothing you can do. So I spent 2 days before the storm preparing, making sure I had all the stuff ready, batteries and all the stuff in case we lost power, food for if we, whatever. Because I was like, well, we're not going to be able to leave the house because we're going to get snowed in. And we did. We got snowed in, and I mean, there's still snow piled up in my front yard. I had to clear out the driveway so I could take my daughter to work this morning. So, it was a little weird, and so there wasn't as much wow as I wanted in this past week, but it's still, I still got some stuff in, so that's good. So anyway, all right, that is enough of that. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get to it.
It's time for the news.
In Blizzard news, so the big news of the week, of course, is going to be the patch 11.1 PTR that just went live today. Blizzard is alive again after their winter hibernation, so that we're getting blue posts and we're getting news updates from the devs, and there's a lot of information going around. So we're going to try and break some of it down and talk about everything that's going on this week in our favorite game, World of Warcraft. All right. First off, let's talk about the patch 11.1 PTR. So, the Operation Floodgate Dungeon Journal is available now. You can jump in there and check it out on the PTR. I'm not going to go through it because they're doing all the dungeon testing for that dungeon this week, and we'll get into that too. It's a 4-boss dungeon. It looks like a lot of fun. I was reading through it, and it looks like it's going to be challenging but entertaining. And so, we'll go with that. All right, let's start with the Season 2 affix changes that are coming in for Mythic Plus. Let's first off, the unified creature buff. So All of these Zalatath's bargain affixes are going to have the same effect on mobs. So no longer is it going to be, oh, they're going to get this or they're going to get that. What is it? Every time they get the buff, it's going to be damage done by the mobs is going to be increased by up to 50%. And their damage taken is going to be reduced by up to 100% for 20 seconds. So here's the deal. If you choose not to do the affix at all, there is a possibility of the mobs around you getting a 100% damage taken reduction, which means they will be invincible for 20 seconds. That is not fun. So you have to do the affixes. But I like this because it's very clear what's going to happen. They're going to hit you harder. They're going to take less damage. Clear, easy. No more like, oh, their haste is going to be increased. They're going to, no, just really clear, really simple. They're going to do more damage. They're going to take less damage. That's it. That's the whole thing. At 20 seconds is a long time, but like I said, do the mechanics and you'll be fine. It'll be all good. Okay. The new affix, Zalatath's Bargain Pulsar, is going to replace Oblivion. So Oblivion was the one where the orbs would just spawn in and float towards you, and you had to intercept them before they touched the mobs. And if they touched the mobs would get a buff. And it was a pain because the orbs would spawn in weird places, and that you had to position the mobs in ways that weren't convenient for the group, or you had to turn in the middle of a frontal. And there was all sorts of problems with that. So they're changing that affix to Pulsar, which Zalatath summons pulsars that orbit players and must be intercepted within a time limit. So it's the same affix, except that the orbs are going to spawn around the players. You still have to intercept them. They're not going to go to the mobs anymore. You just have to touch them all before the timer runs out. And once the timer runs out, then if you go back to the Unified Creatures buff, you can see that they're going to get that damage done buff and the damage taken reduced. So, first of all, this isn't complicated stuff, right? These affixes are easy. Yes, they could be annoying, but they're pretty easy. So as long as you're willing to, as a group, willing to work together to complete these things, this is fine. This is going to be a good. This will be a good season, I think. I think Blizzard is cleaning up the affixes. They're just kind of tightening their knots, so to speak, on some of these things. So I feel like this is a good one. We'll have to see how it plays on the PTR. I haven't looked at the PTR results yet because I haven't had a chance to get on there yet. But yeah, I definitely am curious to see how this goes with testing. All right. The next one is Zalatath's Bargain Voidbound. So Voidbound, Dark Prayer is no longer a channel, and the Void Emissary no longer grants damage reduction to creatures while active. So basically what's going to happen is this guy is going to cast for 15 seconds. You can't interrupt the cast. You have to kill him before he finishes his cast. If he finishes his cast, they're going to get the buff that we talked about earlier. The thing is, since it's a cast now, they don't get any effect. They don't get any benefit from it, whereas previously every few seconds of channeling would give them a buff. This is a much better design for Voidbound because now it's a timer. Now you've got to beat the timer, kill the guy as fast as you can. If you can cleave him down, great. If you can't, you're going to have to focus target him, get him down. And the buff that they get is going to be dependent on how much time is left or how much energy is left on the shield. If you haven't burnt the shield all the way down, they're going to get more of a buff depending on how much you did. If you just completely ignore the guy and don't touch him at all, they'll get 100% buff. But that's really not likely to happen because just from splash damage, you're going to get some numbers taken off this shield. So, yeah, that's it. That's the whole thing. And I like this a lot better. I feel like this is a less punitive. It's less stressful because you have 15 seconds to kill this guy. And as long as you do it within the 15 seconds, you're good. You'll get your little buff and the enemies get nothing. But if you don't, if you're messing around, if you've lost some people in your group and you don't have enough damage now, yeah, it's going to be problematic. But as long as you are able to pay attention and go, oh, here's the affix guy, burn them down. Okay, go. If you've got your rat pally in the group, they're doing their cleave, warrior, whatever class you have that has a cleave, use your I-beam as a demon hunter, something. Now's the time to use your cleaves or your big spells that do a lot of damage to an area. So, all right, let's talk about Xal'atath's Guile. We're going to go back up to this one. So this one has been redesigned. So previously it increased the damage done by mobs and increased the health that they have. I believe it was 20%, 20% damage and 10% health. I think I don't have that written down, but it's been redesigned. So it's no longer what it was. It is now going to be, once you hit level 12, I'm sorry, this is above level 12. So that's also really not clear whether it's 12 and above or above 12. Either way, 12-ish and above, you're going to increase health and damage of enemies by 12% per level instead of 10% per level. So in other words, what's going to happen is you're just going to get an extra 2% damage and health every keystone level, which is a heck of a lot easier. So if you're a high-end player and Xal'atath's Guile was annoying, it will be much, much less so. There was a really big problem with going from 11 to 12, where they called it the big jump, where you had to go, and because there was a huge amount of health and damage increase going to 12s. This is going to make it a lot more accessible for people to get into 12s. And when we talk about Keystone Legend, we'll talk about why that's such a big deal. So, I really like this redesign. I think this is a great replacement for what was in there originally. Blizzard tried something new. It wasn't unsuccessful, but I think it was maybe a little bit less successful than it could have been. So from that standpoint, I think this is a good change, and I'm really happy with how Blizzard is approaching Mythic Plus this season. So, all right, the final one is the Keystone Legend achievement. So we already have the previous levels, 2,000, 2,500. I think there's one at 1,500 maybe, Keystone Champion or something. Anyway, Keystone Legend is the new achievement. You were required to get 2850 rating, and then you will get a quest that will allow you to prevent your keystones level 12 and above from being reduced below level 12 for the remainder of the season. So if you are doing level 12s and you have the Xal'atath's Guile affix, which means you no longer have the Xal'atath's Bargain affix, the Pulsar, Voidbound, whatever, that means that you can just stay in that place and you'll never deplete below a 12. This is a huge change for people who are trying to break into the 12 and above Keystone realm. If you get a 12 and you run it with your group and you don't time it, now you're back down to an 11. You've got to do a crappy 11 to get back to the place where you can do your 12s. I know a lot of high-level players don't really understand this and think, oh, this is a pointless change. This is a huge change for players who are right at that cusp. Players who they can do 10s, no problem. They can do 11s, and it's going to be a little bit more challenging. But once you get to 12s, right in season 1, it's been almost a nightmare for them to try and do a 12. So now you can get there, and you can keep your key to 12 if you want, and you can keep trying it until you figure out how to work through what the mechanics are, what your interrupts, your cooldowns, all of the things that you need to do to have a successful 12 and above, 12, 13, 15, 20, however high you want to go, if you can get up there, you have to be able to learn. And every time you are forced to go back down to an 11 or below, you're now back to the old affix. You've got to deal with orbs or whatever. And it's not it doesn't feel good. I think it's very defeating for some of these teams that are really trying. They're not professional players. They're not streamers. They're not in there really pushing the edge. So I think this is really good. It just, to me, this is a really clear sign that Blizzard wants 12 and up to be the push group. They're saying, okay, if you're in this group, 12 and above, you're just pushing keystones. There's no more affixes, essentially, because Fortified Tyrannical and Challenger's Peril don't really do anything. They just make things harder. And so now that Xal'atath's Guile is just 2% per keystone level, It makes this so much easier and more accessible. And that's the real big thing. Making Keystones accessible, I think, is so important to the future of Mythic Plus. That's great that the top 5% of players or whatever want to run 15s and 16s and they're laughing at people who are doing 12s. That's great for you. I'm happy for you. There are a lot of people out there who probably can run 12s, but they just never get any practice. They never get to try it. If they're pugging, it's miserable because the pugs just don't have patience for them. There's just a lot that goes into Keystones that I think some of these higher end players don't really understand. So, to the, I'm not trying to call people out, but to the Potty C's of the world or the bench, this change is not for you guys. We get it. You guys are good and you guys don't need this. This changes to the people who are barely scraping that next level and who they can make it. They just need a little bit extra. They just need a little bit of help. So it's okay. Be patient. All right. Sorry. I really feel very strongly as a content creator, as a podcaster, somebody who's talking about World of Warcraft, to address the fact that there are other people who play this game besides the people who are playing at the highest level are generally going to be the most well-known and the most famous and have the biggest voice. I understand that. And I'm never going to try to convince myself that I am in that group or that I have the same voice that they do. But there are a large number of people who are in the same place as I am, which is, hey, I'm happy to do this middle level stuff. And occasionally I might want to jump up and try and get a little bit higher. Hey, I've got a permanent group here and we're working really well together and we're doing 10s pretty regularly. And we try some 11s, but we're scared to go to 12s because we get one chance. And if we don't time our key, then it depletes and it's just defeating. So this is a really good change for them. So I'm so excited about Mythic Plus Season 2. I'm excited about the dungeon pool. Honestly, even Dark Flame Cleft. I'm excited to see what Blizzard is able to do with it. I have a feeling it's going to get modified shortly into the season, but we'll see how the testing goes. And we'll talk about all that here in a minute. But I feel like this is a really good transition for the season. I feel like Blizzard has done a great job of listening to the players. While there's been a lot of complaining that Mythic Plus is too hard, I don't think that Mythic Plus is too hard. I think that Mythic Plus is changed. It's different now. It is more elite now than it was previously in Dragonflight. So you have to acknowledge that and you have to accept that. And once you do, you can realize that, Mythic Plus is actually in a really good place. So, all right, let's move on to Season 2 raid and dungeon testing. So I had to pull up a sheet here because there's a lot. Week 1, it's going to be Operation Floodgate for the dungeon testing. And on Friday, January 10th, is going to be Heroic Styx Bunk Junker. Okay, the names of the bosses in this raid are hilarious. So Heroic Styx Bunk Junker on Friday. Week 2 is going to be all of the War Within dungeons. So Priory of the Sacred Flame, the Rookery, Dark Flame Cleft, Cinderbrew Meadery. And then for raid testing on Thursday, January 16th, is going to be Vexy and the Gear Grinders, Cauldron of Carnage, which is the gorilla and the Tyrannosaurus fighting each other, Godzilla and King Kong style, and Rick Reverb. On Friday, January 17th, we're going to get Sprocket Monger Lockenstock, One-Armed Bandit, Mugsy Heads of Security, and then that's all heroic. And then for normal raid, it's going to be the full raid except for the Gallywix fight. So we're not going to get to test the Gallywix fight at all. That's going to be saved for when it's released. So, and then normal testing will continue on through the weekend. So Saturday and Sunday we'll have normal raid testing. So if you want to check out the raid, but you're like, I don't know, on the PTR, and you're like, well, I don't want to do heroic, that's the weekend for you because this normal raid is going to be 17, 18, and 19th of January. So I will more than likely be on the PTR doing raid testing that weekend. So week 3. So this is all of the legacy dungeons. This is going to be Motherlode, Operation Mechagon Workshop, and the Theater of Pain. So those are all for week 3. And then it's going to be Mythic raid testing. So Vexy and the Gear Grinders, Cauldron of Carnage, and Rick Reverb on Thursday, the 23rd. And then Friday, the 24th, we're going to get Styx Bunk Junker, Sprocketmonger Lockenstock, One-Armed Bandit, and Mugsy Heads of Security, all mythic. And then we're going to get Raid Finder, all wings, except for the Gallywix fight. So it looks like the Gallywix fight is going to be wing 4, is what it looks like, which is annoying, but whatever, it's fine. And then Raid Finder testing will continue on throughout the weekend, through the 26th. And then after that, there's no more scheduled raid testing. There's only going to be dungeon testing that's scheduled. And really at this point, it's going to depend on how the raid testing goes. Blizzard might add more bosses back in. They might say, hey, everyone go back and test this boss. We've made some changes or whatnot. That's generally what they've done in the past. They listen to feedback. They go back and they make some changes. But as far as the dungeons go, week 4 is going to be all of the War Within dungeons plus Operation Floodgate. And then week 5 will be all of the Legacy dungeons plus Operation Floodgate. And then week 6 is just all of the Season 2 dungeons. So the entire dungeon pool will be available for testing on the PTR. But right now, if you go on there, you'll get your keystone for Operation Floodgate, and you can set it to whatever level you want, and go check that out. So if you want to go in there and you want to see what the new dungeon looks like, now's the time to do it on the PTR. Obviously, you won't get any credit for it in game on your regular account, but it's sometimes it's nice to be able to go see that. Sometimes it's nice to be surprised. You're like, hey, I don't want to see it. I want to just go in blind. It's fine. I'm going to go check it out on the PTR. So anyway, that's the raid schedule. All right, let's talk about the Turbulent Timeways. So Blizzard has returned the Turbulent Timeways to WoW, and I'm actually really excited about this one because we're going to get 6 weeks of Turbulent Timeways. Actually, is it 7? I think it's 7 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. 7 weeks. Sorry. Blizzard has put in 7 weeks of Turbulent Timeways. So we're getting 7 weeks in a row of time walking. If you do 5 weeks of dungeons, so I think you have to do 5 dungeons each week. And if you get 5 of those, and you'll get a buff. And then if you do that 5 times, you'll get the mount, which is the Timely Buzzbee mount, which is really cool looking. Yeah. So that's what's going on there. And then the time walking schedule. So we're going to start with this week is Mist of Pandaria time walking. So it's going to be Temple of the Jade Serpent, Stormstout Brewery, Shadowpan Monastery, Mogasham Palace, Skolomance, and Gate of the Setting Sun. Not a bad dungeon pool. I really like going back and doing the Mist of Pandaria dungeons, especially now that we've done Remix already, because you can kind of look at them from a different lens and just kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, I remember this one. This is fine. I still hate Gate of the Setting Sun, but at least we didn't get Nizhao Temple. All right, next week, January 14th, is going to be Warlords of Draenor time walking. So we're going to get Akandun, Bloodmaw Slag Mines, Everbloom, Grimrail Depot, Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, and Skyreach. Again, this is a really good dungeon pool. I'm happy with the WoD time walking. I feel like it's in a good place. As far as I'm concerned, Mist of Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor, they really hit the nail on the dungeon design. I just feel like Mist of Pandaria didn't get enough dungeons, but that's a problem for a different day. January 21st is going to be Legion time walking, and that will be Blackrook Hold, Court of Stars, Darkheart Thicket, Eye of Ashara, Neltharion's Lair, and Vault of the Wardens, which I hate, by the way. I hate that one so much. Blizzard, please don't ever give us Vault of the Warden in the Mythic Plus pool, please. Yeah, and then so we're not getting Legion Mythic Plus anymore. Obviously, that's something that hasn't happened for a while, but yeah, just regular old Legion time walking. All right, January 28th, we're going to go to the beginning. We have Classic time walking. So now that Classic is in the time walking pool after the anniversary event, and that's going to be the 6 dungeons that we had. It's Dead Mines, Starmail East, Starmail West, Stratholme, both sides of Stratholme, and Zul'Farrak. February 4th is going to be the Burning Crusade. So we're going to get the raid, Black Temple. So make sure you pick up the quest for that one on that week. And then the 6 dungeons are going to be the typical Magister's Terrace, Mana Tombs, Blood Furnace, Botanica, Shattered Halls, and the Underbog. February 11th, Wrath of Lich King, we're going to get the Ulduar Raid and Azul Narub, Gundrak, Halls of Lightning, Forge of Souls, Nexus, and Utgard Keep. Say, I hate doing these old dungeons because now that they've changed the scaling on this, these are actually hard. They used to be so easy. You could just run through. It would take 8 minutes. Now you actually have to think, and you have to actually pay attention to what's going on. It's annoying. And then finally, February 18th, Cataclysm Time Walking. It's going to be Firelands, The Raid, and Stonecore, Lost City of the Tolvir, Vortex Pinnacle, Throne of the Tides, End Time, and Blackrock Caverns for the dungeons. So here's the thing. I think that Blizzard has done a pretty good job with time walking. We still don't have a Battle for Azeroth time walking, and it's very clear here that they're skipping that step. We're not getting that. I'm still unsure as to whether or not this is going to be the format going forward, but this is the format right now. And I think that Blizzard is just kind of sticking with this. I wouldn't be surprised if we just start getting more remix type things going forward. But that's a discussion for another day. This is what we're getting now. Remember to do your quest. You have to do 5 time walking dungeons or the raid. Kill 5 bosses if there's a raid available. And then you will get a heroic piece of loot from Nerebar Palace, which is great. So if you've got some alts that you want to get some gear on before Season 2, this is the way to do it. Go in there, get your hero piece of gear. Maybe you'll get a weapon or a trinket or something cool. And then for the last 3 weeks, you will also have a quest to kill the boss and loot an item from the raid, which will get you another hero piece of gear. So there is potential here for you to get 10 pieces of hero gear. Now, obviously, there's going to be some overlap in gear and stuff that you already have hero. That's fine. But this is a lot of gear. So if you're willing to put the time in on your alts, or if you never geared up your main because you were doing delves or you were, I don't know, whatever, or you just resubbed to WoW and you're like, well, what do I do? This is how you get your gear. You go do time walking, you'll get hero track gear, and you'll be able to upgrade that. Now, you can't really upgrade it unless you're doing higher level delves or Mythic Plus, but you can at least get that piece, and it's going to be like a 610 or something like that. So that's a really good upgrade. So anyway, yeah, that's about it for the news items. Let's talk about this week in World of Warcraft really quickly. War Within Season 1, Week 18. The Xal'atath bargain affix this week is Ascendant. 10 orbs appear every minute. While in combat, they must be interrupted, purged, knocked, or crowd controlled. Yeah, this one's actually pretty easy. I think everyone has at least some move that they can use that will deal with that. If the orb cast goes off, enemies get buffed with 10% movement speed and haste per cast. So you definitely need to interrupt those orbs. You don't want your enemies to get super haste buff. If the orbs are interrupted, players get a stacking buff worth 2% movement speed and haste per stack. So if you get all 10, that's a 20% buff. It's really good. And then the +4 affix this week is Tyrannical. You know it, you hate to see it. Bosses have 25% more health and deal 15% more damage. It is what it is, man. I don't even know. All right. The bonus event this week, as I mentioned, is Mist of Pandaria Time Walking. You will get the Sign of the Mists buff. Mist of Pandaria reputation gains from combat and quests increased by 50%. You will pick up the quest A Shrouded Path Through Time in Dornogal to defeat 5 time walking dungeons, and you will get a piece of heroic raid gear from Nerebar Palace, and I already listed out the dungeon. So yeah, that's the time walking for the week. The PvP brawl for the week is Packed House. We've put more PvP in your PvP. In Packed House, there is nowhere to hide as you face not 2, not 3, not 5, but 15 adversaries in this 15v15 arena battle. When you zone in, you'll get the quest Something Different to win a PvP brawl, and when you do, you will be rewarded with Conquest, Honor, and Marks of Honor, which is great for Transmog. And then Darkmoon Fair is in town. I neglected to mention this last week, but the Darkmoon Fair is in town, and you know I love the Darkmoon Fair. It's so much fun. You go there, you ride the merry-go-round or the roller coaster to get the XP and reputation buff. You can check out the concert. You can get shots from the cannon. You can fly through the rings. There's so much to do at the fair. I really love it. Every time I go there, I tend to explore a different area of the fair, and And you go check, oh, I forgot about this. This is so cool. Check out this over here. I think one time I went over there and it was like, oh, there's a killer bunny rabbit you have to fight, and this thing is killing everyone. So yeah, the fair will run through Saturday night, the 11th, and make sure that you do the quest for your professions, because it will not just reward you with knowledge points, but also skill points. If you have not maxed either of your professions, this is definitely a must do, because you will get 2 points per profession. So if you're right at that edge, you're like, man, these NPC work orders are too expensive and I can't, this is a really good way to get a couple of skill points. So, all right, that is it for the news. Let's move on to the main topic for the week.
It's time for the main topic of the week.
All right, so I wanted to talk about the Season 1 Dungeons and Raid and kind of where I stand on Season 1 and how my feelings on it. So, and this is, I'm kind of going at this freeform because I don't want to have something written down. I want to be able to speak from my heart, how I really feel about not just the War Within as an expansion, but specifically these seasonal activities. You know, you can throw delves in there too if you want, but really this is about the dungeons and the raid. So I'm going to start with the raid and say that Nerebar Palace is probably one of my favorite raids in a long time. I think overall it's a better raid than Vault of the Incarnates was. Definitely a better raid than Amir Drasail or Aberrus. I mean, I liked both of those, but I feel like Nerebar Palace is better. I feel like the bosses go well. I think Blizzard did state at one point that maybe Sikran and Rashanan were easier than they intended. Because I know a lot of guilds have kind of gotten a 4 out of 8 Mythic and stopped there because the difficulty just jumps way up after you get to after you kill Rashanan. So one of the things I really like about this raid is that it's linear. So many of the raids that Blizzard has been producing are non-linear raids. And you're like, well, we could go this way or this way. We can go in a circle. We can run around here, and you end up backtracking all over the place. No, you got your little flight paths in the raid that get you around quickly. If you wipe, getting back to where you need to go is actually pretty easy. I think the hardest one to get to quickly is Silken Court. But overall, it's a really good raid. I liked the way they handled the stacking buff over the weeks to go, all right, well, yeah, you did this, so now we're going to add this number. Percent was like 3% or something a week, or 2.5%. I liked it because you didn't even have to get all of the buffs from your main character. You could get them from your alts and send them to your main. It just, when you combine warbands and everything they've learned over the years, it's just a really well done, well thought out raid. If I had to make a complaint about any of the fights in there, it would definitely be Bloodbound Horror. I feel like the random nature of the ads that spawn during the dark or void phase or whatever it's called, it's annoying. And it's not hard to deal with. It's just annoying. That's it. It's annoying. I don't like fights that rely heavily on RNG for mechanics. I just don't. That's not something I'm interested in. I feel like a fight should have a good, solid structure where everybody understands what they need to do, and it's hard to do. That's the way to do a raid fight. Move out of the thing. You've got to stand here so you can click on that so that this thing will open up so you can kill the boss. Fine, whatever. But the fact that the ads can spawn all over the circle is just, to me, that's really annoying. And we've had pulls where the ads spawn almost opposite each other, and it's just crazy. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to get through this as a tank? How am I supposed to pick this up? Anyway, I I don't mind. I haven't done it on Mythic, but I don't mind the addition of the heroic mechanic on there with the beam. It's actually kind of fun. So I like that fight. The Sekran fight is a joke. That one's actually, unfortunately, it's too easy, in my opinion, on heroic. I don't know about Mythic, but on heroic, it's way too easy. The Rashinon fight is actually really good. I like that. It's a heavy movement fight. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. But at the end of the day, it's just a solid execution fight. You got to move out. You got to bring the ads in. You got to move the webs out. It's a really good, solid execution fight. That is what I'm talking about when I say the Bloodbound Horror fight is too RNG. Look at the Rashinon fight, and that's how you do non-RNG. Everyone just knows what to do, and whoever gets the webs, okay, now you know you need to get out, and it's a really good fight. I like that one. So the two lieutenant fights, the Ovanax and Nexus Princess, I mean, they're good fights. The Ovanax fight is fine. The problem that we had in our guild going into Ovanax was that people kept getting hit by the little grub things. Which obviously that causes a lot of problems in that fight. So your goal would be to not get hit by those. Which when we switched to a 10-player group, it got so much easier, but that shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't have to go down in your group size in order to make something accessible. So I don't know. That fight, I don't love the mechanics in there, but I don't say that they're bad. I think that they're frustrating, especially for my group. And then the Nexus Princess fight, that one's so good. It's such a good fight. It's awful. It's horrible. It's frustrating, but it's a fun fight. I really like that one. And then the Silken Court, so well done. So good. The way that they take turns and they're going at each other the whole time, it's a very well built, well executed mechanically fight. It's so good. And then of course Queen. And I've talked about Queen before, and I even mentioned it earlier today. I feel like that's one of the best fights they've ever done. It's so good. It's so fun to go in there, and I don't mind repeating the fight because the fight itself is fun. You have to stay on your toes. You have to pay attention. You have to do the mechanics, but all the mechanics make sense. Nothing in there is, oh man, we wiped it to RNG. No, you're not going to wipe to RNG. If you wipe, it's because you made a mistake. That's it. That's how a boss fight should be. It should be punishing, but if you do it all right, you win. That's it. The bosses are supposed to lose convincingly, and I feel like Queen Azeroth does that. Obviously, she hasn't lost convincingly enough yet to us, but we'll get her this week. So overall, Nerevar Palace, I don't know, maybe the best raid since... I didn't raid in Battle for Azeroth, so it's not fair. So I can't use any of the raids in BFA. Because I was going to say it's the best raid since Nighthold, but I didn't do anything in BFA, so I can't. So bypassing Battle for Azeroth, I'd say that Nerevar Palace is the best raid since Nighthold. But, everybody's got a different opinion, and everyone's going to think of that differently, and that's fine. I really liked the raid. I thought it was a really good job by Blizzard to provide content that was accessible from so many people. And the fact that the Silken Court and Queen Ansarek both dropped the higher level of crests were brilliant. It was a brilliant move because it gives you incentive to go and kill those bosses every week. So if you're a mythic guild, you're killing mythic bosses. Maybe you're on 3 of 8 and you're progging Rashinon. You have incentive to go back and kill Silken Court and Ansarek for the extra crests. You just do. Not everyone wants to run Mythic Plus every week to get their crests. So that's just some easy crests that you can get. I think that's a really good idea. So I mean that's it. It's the whole thing. The design is good. The ambiance is good. I think the Liberation of Undermine raid in patch 11.1 for season 2, it's got a lot of it has a lot that it needs to accomplish in order to be better than Erebor Palace. So anyway, all right, let's talk about the Mythic Plus. Let's talk about Mythic Plus. That's always a dangerous thing to talk about. My feelings on talking about Mythic Plus is always a loaded gun, because you can really get people get opinionated, and they'll let you know about their opinions. And something that I've learned as a content creator is that people are going to lash out at me because I've touched a nerve emotionally for them, and or I've said something that maybe goes contrary to what they believe or what they think. And sometimes those people they get angry about that, and that's fine. I accept that. You can be angry, you can call me names, you can do whatever you want. That's fine. Don't take it personally. I'm not here telling you that you're bad. I'm telling you what I think, and this is my opinion. And I've said it before, and I will say it again. If you really feel strongly about your opinion, you should start your own podcast. You should get out there and you should say, hey, I think Mythic Plus is great, or I think that whatever. So that's my stance on it. I am only going to speak my opinions. But with that said, I welcome the feedback, even if it's negative. Please tell me that you think that I'm a fool. I'm happy to listen. I'm happy to hear that. I might not respond to it, but I'm actually happy to receive the feedback, because it lets me know that I'm not operating in an echo chamber here, and I'm not just rambling and no one's listening. People are listening, and people have thoughts and opinions on what I am saying. I like that. I think that's good. So that being said, let's talk about Mythic Plus. So first off, I think the Mythic Plus pool this time around was a little rough, but I think, first of all, I think it was a mistake to include Mists of Tyrna Scythe. Not because the maze is so hard. That's not why. But because it became the de facto, here's the quick, easy dungeon. Because it is easy. It's fast. And if you can figure out how to do the maze quickly, you're going to burn through that one. No problem at all. So, yeah, that's... I wouldn't have picked that one. I would have picked the other side, honestly, over Mists of Tyrna Scythe. But that's just me. A Necrotic Wake can just go burn in a hole of fire and brimstone. I hate that place so much. And see, the difference between Necrotic Wake and Mists of Tyrna Scythe, or any of the other dungeons, is that Necrotic Wake is one of those dungeons that it has a very specific way that you need to address the mobs. And going through there, and you're like, okay, I've got this group, I've got that group. And once you've learned that, it's pretty easy. The boss fights in there suck so bad. The first boss is not too bad. Okay, that one's okay. The second and the third boss, both of those, if you have one person who doesn't understand how the mechanics in that fight work, you're going to have a hard time. It is going to be rough. You got the mages you got to interrupt. You know, I went in there as a Death Knight tank, and so thankfully I was able to pull those archers in. But, you know, not being able to interrupt the mobs, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to not have the capability to deal with the mechanics, and now you've got to run out and you've got to burn those guys down. You got to dodge the beam. I had so many healers that just get blasted in the face with the beam from the third boss. From the second boss. And then the third boss, that mechanic has got to be one of the most frustrating mechanics in the game, because I was told more than once, do not bring your pet out on this fight. Now, my pet is part of my rotation. And so it's easy for me to say, okay, I'm not going to bring him out. That's fine, because it's just damage. But that's a badly designed fight, in my opinion. If you can't play your class the way you're supposed to because it will interfere with the mechanic of the boss fight, I feel like that's a problem. Either the pet positioning is wrong, or the mechanic needs to change, or needs to ignore pets, or something. But yeah, that fight stinks. And the last fight's easy, so whatever. Necrotic Wake, I didn't like that one. But again, this isn't really about, oh, this one was good, this one was bad. It was about overall, I feel like Blizzard made some questionable choices in the dungeon pool. Now, the other two dungeons, Siege Borealis and Grimatoll, I hated Siege of Borealis when it first came into the pool. And I realized after a while that it was because I didn't know it, because I didn't play a whole bunch during BFA. I didn't do Mythic Plus in BFA. I didn't run a whole bunch of dungeons. I ran a few dungeons, but mostly it just bounced around and kind of, because I had been playing Classic. And then I switched back over to Battle for Azeroth. So, yeah, I mean, that's what it was. But the thing is, in Siege of Borealis, it's so open-ended. You could pull too many mobs. So as a tank, it was really frustrating. But anytime I did it not as a tank, it's actually a pretty good dungeon. I actually really liked it. And so I warmed up to that one quite a bit. Grim Batol, or as I've heard it called, Grim Butthole, that place just awful. Awful. No. I hated it back in Cataclysm, and I hate it now. That place can just go in the same hole as Necrotic Wake. Just no. All right. Let's talk about the 4 War Within dungeons that we got. So, Dawnbreaker, obviously that one's great. A lot of people really liked that one. I was going to say everybody, but not everyone loves it. Some people really didn't care for it. I really liked it. I thought it was good. City of Threads, I grew to like that one quite a bit. At first, when I was like, oh, this one's dumb. You have to find this spy, and it's annoying. This is like Court of Stars all over again. No, it was actually a lot of fun. I really liked City of Threads. Arikara, so I didn't mind that one so much, but I think a lot of people struggled with it just from it wasn't even from a mechanic standpoint. It was just from a how to pull that opening room, how to get through, what's the percentage of mobs you need. I feel like people really struggled with that one. For whatever reason, that one felt a little uncomfortable. And then there was Stone Vault. Just no. That one was awful. The last boss fight in there, I hated that. The mobs that you have to get, I mean, there was so much to dislike about Stone Vault. So overall, I would say the dungeon pool was like a low B for me. I'll give it a low B. High C, low B. As far as the affix changes that they made in the beginning of the War Within. So we got the new Xal'atath's bargain affixes, and they were okay. Obviously the Oblivion one was the most hated, I think, that people just really were frustrated with. The Ascendant is fine. The Voidbound was fine. I mean, they were all fine. I didn't really have a problem with any of them. Like I said, playing as a Death Knight or as a Druid, I don't have a problem with it. The Demon Hunter had a little bit of trouble in there, but overall, I'd say the affix changes were good for the +2 affix. The adding in the 4 affix for Tyrannical and Fortified, I feel like that was an interesting change, because I feel like what I think Blizzard should have done instead of maintaining Fortified and Tyrannical is just say at 4 and 10, or whatever you want to, 10 is fine, +10 damage to all mobs, including bosses, and +10 health. And then again at 10, same thing, +10. So when you start off, you're going to go, okay, well, this is a 4, so they're going to have 10% more damage and 10% more health. Okay. And then at a 10, you're adding. So now they have 20% damage and 20% health overall. I feel like that would have been a better way to handle, instead of using Fortified and Tyrannical, because I don't like that it's like, well, this week is easier on Trash until you get to a 10, and then it's the same. And we don't need that. Those affixes are old. They need to go away. We need to just add 10% damage and healing per level, or per affix level at 4 and at 10. I feel like that would make things simpler. And really, that's the whole point of this, is to make it simpler. We don't need anything complex. We just need it simple. The Challenger's Peril affix, I feel like, was a mistake. I feel like it really de-incentivized running with pugs above 7 and above. It de-incentivized taking risks because there was the chance that you were going to wipe, and if you wiped, you were losing over a minute on the timer just from the wipe, let alone from the time that it takes you to run back. So I feel like overall the Challenger's Peril was a bad affix. They're keeping it for season 2, and that's fine. They've modified it and made it a little bit better by adding to the timer when you get it. So from that standpoint, I understand that, but I think overall it doesn't really add anything. It just takes away. It doesn't add to the thrill or to, the danger. It just makes it frustrating when you do wipe. And I think affixes should give you a thrill of, this is going to be harder. Not, you better not wipe or we're going to kick you from this group, man. And I know that that's a community created issue, not a Blizzard created issue, but Blizzard needs to understand their community and to know that if you're going to create things that are going to allow for more toxic gameplay, players are going to do it. So overall, I would say the affix is, again, I'll give this one a C for the affixes. I like the Xal'atath's bargain affixes. I don't like the way they handled the rest of them. I think a flat damage increase. Honestly, I think they could have done an affix at 2, and then a damage and health increase for the mobs at 4, and then another one at 7, and then at 10 you could have had the Xal'atath's Guile or something else. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. I think they could have made it a little simpler, made it a little easier. Then you don't have to even worry about, all you have to worry about is which Xal'atath affix do we have this week? Oh, it's the one with the orbs? Okay. You're going to interrupt the orbs? Fine. I'll do that. So, let's talk about the change to the Mythic Plus scaling. So the way that they changed the keystones in Dragonflight Season 4, and I've talked about this a lot, but I want to make sure that this is a big part of where I'm coming from with my feelings about Mythic Plus, because I feel like Blizzard has definitely removed the lower level of Mythic Plus from the player base. That's obvious. And I don't think that it's necessary that they, bring it back. They don't need to go and do a bunch of stuff to change things and make it more accessible to people. No, it's fine. Make Mythic Plus an elite experience. Fine. I'm good with that. Not everyone can do Heroic Raid. Not everyone can do Mythic Plus. Fine. That being said, I do feel like there's something missing in the lower levels of the player base. Delves is not the answer. Delves fills a very specific niche, and while players do delves for gear, it's primarily because there's nothing else to do at that level. If you have gear that's better than Heroic Dungeon, but worse than like a +4 keystone will give you, you have to do delves. That's all you can do, because nobody wants to run Mythic 0. It's so beyond worthless at this point. And I don't like any time that Blizzard makes us feel like we're forced to do a certain content in order to progress. I liked the fact that Mythic Plus was there and you could do it, but you didn't have to, because it's this endlessly scaling end game activity that you can participate in or not. It's up to you as a player. You have the choice. Fine. That's fine. I'm good with that. But instead, we now have this middle ground where it's like, hey, you can go from doing basically, I hesitate to use this term because it sounds kind of insulting, but the baby content, right? The normal dungeons, then heroic dungeons and world quests and stuff like that. Things that anybody could do. You got your 7-year-old a computer for Christmas, and now they're playing WoW with you, and you have them running world quests and you have them doing follower dungeons. Maybe you ran a couple heroics with them. That's fine. It's fine. And that's the type of people that can run that. Your uncle wants to play WoW with you because he's like, oh, I remember playing WoW back in 2004. What's it like now? And you're like, it's a completely different game, bro. This is not the same WoW that you played back when you were in your 30s. This is a very different game. So, he might be able to build up to running Mythic Plus, but to start off, he's going to want to do, hey, let's run a heroic. We'll do a follower dungeon. That sounds cool. But at some point, you have to graduate from that and either graduate from that and move up to the next thing, or you stay there and you live in that zone. And if that's where you want to live, that's fine. Go for it. If you want to graduate to the next thing, there is a huge leap. And then there's Mythic Plus. So in order to fill that void, Blizzard has given us delves, which again, delves are cool. I like delves. I really do like delves. But I've never run a delve and been like, woohoo, I'm running a delve, baby. Yee-hee. It's always been like, oh yeah, I got to go do some delves. And then, I'm going to go do my delves so I can get my vault filled out. And, so I scoffed at the whole mole people comment from Growl last year when he was talking about who are delves for. But I think in some ways he might be right. That really there's nobody that nobody is looking at delves going, woohoo, this is the best content ever. I shouldn't say nobody. There are going to be people that, yes, they want to play delves, they want to run delves, and they love it so much, and that's their preferred content. That's fine. I like doing small group activities. I like Mythic Plus. That's something that I've always liked doing since I came back to the game in, I came back in battle for Azeroth, but Shadowlands is when I started doing Mythic Plus, and I really liked it. I liked the idea behind it. I liked the affixes. I liked the challenge, the timer, the death count. I mean, all of that stuff. You're like, no, this is good. This is fun. It's intense. It's keeping the game fresh and interesting. So when Blizzard changed that and removed the lower tiers of Mythic Plus, it was hard for me because I did have a lot of characters that I would do Mythic Plus on that never went above a 10 in the old system. Never. And now those characters just can't do Mythic Plus. They just can't. You have to gear up. And the only way to gear up is through delves. And it sucks. Well, no, that's not true. You could raid. You could do raid, but that's once a week and you'll get gear. You can't do anything repeatable. I should clarify that. So I really wish that Blizzard had something in there that was a small group activity. I know you could do groups and delves, but honestly, I don't want to. I don't want to do a delve in a group because honestly, delves they're not really well designed for groups. They're just not. They're not good group content. They're good solo content. They are good low-key, low-level content that you can run. If you are just trying to fill out your vault and you're like, yeah, I just need a couple spots, you can run some level 1 delves. No problem. You knock them out 10 minutes and you're done. I feel like the delves are a little bit lost in their own place. Like, who are we? What are we? And I really wish that Blizzard could figure out a better way to do that middle group of content and not have to just completely rely on delves. So I know I've beaten this horse to death many times in the past, and I'm going to continue beating it to death because I feel very strongly about this. I feel like delves are a missed opportunity by Blizzard to add solo content into the game. It is fun. I do enjoy delves, but I don't often get excited by delves, if that makes sense. If I'm running a 7 keystone, I got into a group or somebody from the guild is like, let's run this. And it's like, I'm going to go. It's exciting. You go and you're like, I'm nervous. It's nerve wracking thinking, oh my gosh, what if I mess up? What if I brick somebody's key? But it's exciting. I find it exciting. So, yeah, it's just my take on that. That's Blizzard, please add some sort of lower level Mythic Plus to the game. And that could be, they've talked about adding where there's a dungeon queue for Mythic Plus where you get into a queue and maybe there's no timer or there's no mob percentage or something like that. Fine. I'll do that. If it gives me an opportunity to get gear and run that more challenging content, something harder than heroic that I have to pay attention to, fine. Let's do that. Something. But right now there's just nothing. It stinks. So, all right. I think that's going to cover everything there. On the topic of delves, I would say I'm going to do a delve tier list here at some point in the future, where I go through all of the different delves and all the different delve stories and kind of talk about which ones I like the best. And I'll end up doing a video on that at some point in the future, maybe before 11.1 releases, and then we can, because we're getting 2 new delves, plus we're getting new stories. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do it before then. So otherwise I'll have new content I'll have to add to it. So so be on the lookout for that at some point. But right now, delves, I would say, well, first let's go Mythic Plus. Let's talk about the reworking of Mythic Plus. That is definitely a C tier for me. I like that Mythic Plus is elite now, but to me that's really the only advantage, is that it feels more elite. So if you're an elitist and you're like, hoo, I run Mythic Plus, what do you do, pleb? Then that's great. But for the people out there who maybe struggle with the, getting beyond the 4 or 5 range of Mythic Plus, you know what? It's okay to let us have some content too that's not a delve. So C for the Mythic Plus change. And then for delves overall, I'll give delves a low B. They're good. I like delves. They're good. They're fun. They're enjoyable. But like I said, I've never gotten excited about running a delve. So I think the closest I got was doing Zekfir's Lair, and Blizzard ruined that by taking away the rewards for it. So, or the Great Vault from it. So, so that's it. I mean, the rest of season 1 is all just the regular, like the world quests and the different the factions and the renounce and all that. And that's all fine. Everything else in the game, actually, overall, I'd say the War Within is a low A, high B, because there's so many good things. The questing is good. The storylines are good. The cinematics are amazing. I really like Siren Isle. I wish that we had gotten a little bit more War Within content in patch 11.0.5 instead of just the anniversary event, but that's fine. So I'm really looking forward to patch 11.1 season 2. I'm hoping that we can get some really good things out of this, and Blizzard continues to learn and to iterate on some of these changes that they've been making, and just really making the game a better game. I feel like World of Warcraft is continuously getting better now that Blizzard is actually paying attention to the player base and listening and going, you know what? You're right. That does suck. Let's take it out. Okay, cool. WoW is in the best place it's ever been, in my opinion. So, all right. That's going to wrap up our show for today. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. I really do appreciate it. It is always a pleasure and a privilege for me to get on this microphone and speak to you. I can't say enough how much I appreciate all the support and all of the feedback that I've gotten. The Patreon supporters, all of it has just meant so much to me. So thank you very much. I'm feeling very happy and blessed this new year. So if you want to get a hold of me directly, you can reach me on Twitter or Blue Sky. I am at Denethar on both of those platforms. You can also occasionally catch me streaming on Twitch or YouTube. I am at Denethar01 on both of those platforms. If you want to get the any of the links for Azeroth United, we have a link tree. It's linktr.ee/Azeroth United. And I'll also have that in the show notes. It has the Patreon, it has the Discord, it has the X, Twitter, Blue Sky links, all that stuff. Spotify, I think maybe is in there. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, check out the link tree if you want to get a hold of Azeroth United, the podcast. But like I said, if you want to get a hold of me, Denethar, you can reach me on places that I mentioned. And all of the links will be in the show notes, so you can check all that out there. And that's going to wrap it up for us today. As I said before, I've got some changes that are coming into the format. This is probably going to be the last time I'm going to record on a Tuesday. It is now 10:30 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, and I still got to edit this before I release. So Tuesdays maybe just aren't going to work for me, and so I'm looking at maybe doing Saturday or Sunday, but we'll see. That's a problem for future me, but more news on that to come, and I will let you know definitely if there's going to be a regular change in the recording date. And then as far as the rest of the new year, I've got a couple of things lined up that I'm working on in the background right now. So hopefully there will be a little bit more content for Azeroth United than just me talking into my webcam right now. And then I also have some YouTube videos that I'm working on for my YouTube channel at Denethar01. So yeah, lots coming down the pipe. This is going to be a good year. I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully you'll be here to enjoy it with me. So all right, that's it. Thank you thank you again so much for listening and for watching. Remember to be good to each other out there. That's a real person on the other side of that keyboard, and maybe they like doing lower level Mythic Plus, and you want to be an elitist, and you're going to look down your nose at them. That's okay. You can still be friendly. You can still be friends with them, and just smile and nod and just say, okay, that's all right. We can be friends. We don't have to run Mythic Plus together. So. All right. Be good. Take care. I love you all, and I'll see you in Azeroth.